Subcutis. Sebastian is pleased, absolutely pleased. Franziska, too. Together, they are sitting on the chic terrace of the five-star hotel in Alcudia, Playa de Muro, enjoying the exclusive view of the foamy ocean. With a contented look on their faces, they clink together their long-stemmed glasses with a mixture of sparkling wine and orange juice. Imagine that, having to wear that dumb mask for 4 hours. If you count the time in the airport and during the flight, the temperature check, the bus ride to the hotel, in the lobby. Disinfect, again and again, and then Sebastian shakes his head in disgust, and then can't even eat from the buffet. I think I'd rather not even go on vacation than to spend my money on something like that. Franziska looks over and now also sees the young man with his mask on, standing at the reception desk, gesticulating. Maybe he has some autoimmune disease or whatever, or got sick just before his vacation. You never know. Yeah, maybe. He'll probably have to take his meals in his room. Thankfully, that's not our problem. Sebastian laughs a little too loudly and toasts his partner once again. You don't get these dangerous viruses in Europe, Franziska adds in agreement. My guess is they're only at home in Asia or somewhere else far away. They both look out over the perfect, slightly blustering blue sea below the perfect blue sky, each lost in their own expectations for the coming vacation week. The year 2013 had been a stressful one for them. Sebastian was looking forward to bathing in the Mediterranean Sea, doing a little workout during the day in the fitness room at the hotel, and then gorging himself with no feelings of guilt at the evening buffet. Franziska, on the other hand, wants nothing but to do a little beach reading and indulge in her special treat of observing the other guests on the beach and at the breakfast and evening buffet. It's like looking at one of those paintings by Massimo Vitali with their many secret hidden objects. Together with Sebastian, she likes to pick out the most interesting ones and give them funny or fictitious names of famous people they vaguely resemble. Especially entertaining to them is when they combine their powers of surveillance and guess what this person or that person does in life, or in their opinion could do. Fantastic. One of the bellboys, who reminds Sebastian of Cristiano Ronaldo, Franziska of a deeply suntanned version of Channing Tatum, takes their luggage in hand and brings them to their second-story room with a view of the ocean. Of course, the first thing they do, once the bellboy has pocketed his tip and left the room, is to rush out to inspect the spacious balcony. The view that lies before them, in this they are agreed, is worth every penny of the surcharge. Viewing the Mediterranean from afar is fine, but now it is time to go to the beach. Unpacking can wait, yet something is about to tarnish their pleasure. Basti, don't forget to apply the sunscreen. Franziska ostentatiously extends her half-naked friend an orange-colored tube of sunblock. That is enough to dampen his burgeoning excitement about visiting the beach. His eyebrows meet in the middle, and he gives the colorful bottle a skeptical look. Where's the spray? Didn't you bring spray along? You know I prefer spray. It's not so greasy. Sorry, forgot, Franziska answers curtly. But you will definitely need some sunscreen. This one has a very high SPF, higher than the spray. Remember the last time when you got a sunburn despite the spray? It wasn't that bad, Sebastian grumbles and removes his polo shirt. I just hate that greasy feeling on my skin. The thought makes him shudder. Oh, come on. Once we're at the beach and in the water, you won't notice a thing. Sebastian watches as Franziska puts on her bikini. Look who's talking. You don't even need to use sunscreen. This is true. Franziska has darker skin than her boyfriend, who, despite his black hair, has always been fair-skinned and gotten a sunburn during each of their beach vacations, especially when failing to apply lavish amounts of sunscreen in advance and keeping out of the sun and under the umbrella, if possible with a t-shirt on. Even while swimming in the ocean, he has to wear a t-shirt, which he can remove at most for a while in the late afternoon. At the end of vacation, his skin at best shimmers with a slightly yellow tint. Having no other choice, in the end, Sebastian smears the greasy cream on his whitish skin and asks Franziska to apply it to his back. Then he makes his way, his glossed and fatty exterior beside that of his bronzed girlfriend, to the beach to soak up the last few sunny afternoon hours. Upon arrival, they rent, for a horrendous price, 2 deck chairs with umbrella, and then it's off and into the waves. Franziska sparsely clad in her bikini that even more favorably accentuates her figure. Sebastian in a loud, orange-colored shirt that protects his slightly protruding belly from the effects of aggressive sunshine. The water is pleasantly warm. It's almost like splashing around in the bathtub, an act of pure joy for the couple, lunging into the water beneath a nearly cloudless sky. They take a couple of strokes, dive below the surface, feel the salt water cover every inch of their bodies, and then resurface. Here, they can stand upright in the water, even though some 20 meters from the beach. Sebastian and Franziska embrace and kiss in the waist-high water, assuring themselves of their common state of contentment. When he noisily withdraws from the wet embrace, his t-shirt now clinging to his body, he has no inkling that in only a few days' time his life will never be the same as before. "Hey, Basti, don't look now, but over there. Look who's here." Basti knows exactly what to expect when Franzi points out something on the beach in her business-like conspirational voice. She continues to stare, without the slightest embarrassment, to the source of her observation and can hardly suppress a crooked smile. Well, if that isn't... Yes, indeed, that is. It only takes him a second. Then Sebastian quite clearly perceives what, or better said, who, his girlfriend is inspecting. No doubt about it. She's looking at the thin, pallid fellow with the short, straw-blonde hair and matching mustache and goatee, lying on the 3rd chair to their left, slightly closer to the water. He looks like Edward Snowden, at least at first glance. At second glance, maybe not so much. He's a bit heftier, has freckles on his back and in his face, which he now turns slightly toward them while speaking. His short hair has a touch of red. Add to that a tattoo that is hard to decipher from afar, but somehow fails to fit this otherwise civil servant-looking young man. On the other hand, there is his beet red back, which he has clearly failed to protect from the sun while leaning forward slightly to read his newspaper. The Independent, as Sebastian can finally discern from the large letters across the masthead, right next to the bird of prey with a newspaper in its claws. 2 friendly and smart-looking young women with shoulder-length brown hair lie on either side of him. They apparently are having less trouble fighting the sun. They speak leisurely with one another, turning then and again to their neighbor with the newspaper. "Snowdinho is probably a Brit," Sebastian says with a grin. "He knows everything, am I right? Except for the fact that you can't lie in the sun in this part of the world without first lathering your skin with sunscreen or getting cancer. Why has no one told him that? Maybe it's not secretive enough." Franziska ignores these comments. "And what about the 2 girls?" she is eager to know, and continues to stare in the direction of the trio. "Why does a guy like that have 2 fancy broads with him?" "No idea," Sebastian answers with a shrug, without even taking a second look at them. "It's probably a woman thing, you know. They like his intellect. He's a good talker, or does something better than all the others. Maybe it's the tattoo." There's a major push at the buffet. Of course, because the hotel has hired an excellent chef, whom they lured from another local hotel about 500 meters down the road for an impressive amount of money. His specialty is fish. So Sebastian's plate is filled with a mountain of fish from the buffet, in all possible variations, grilled, cooked, smoked, deep-fried. Looks like a lot to devour, but he'll do his best. Franziska prefers first a salad and some vegetables. Her goal is to eat a healthy diet and, although she doesn't need to keep an eye on her figure. The 2 eat diligently. Although they had wanted to enjoy their meal, it now seems more like a ravenous act. Still, Franziska keeps her eye on her surroundings. "Hey look, isn't that Martin Walser?" An elderly couple dressed in dignified evening attire slowly approach the buffet. The woman oozes elegance and seems a bit more agile and sprite than her rather sleepy-looking spouse shuffling beside her. Sebastian takes up her musings. Yeah, she's probably some rich industrial heiress who supports him. Sebastian had promised himself not to eat so quickly, but he finds it hard to control his greed. So he just continues to push the fish variations, one after the other, with great appetite into his mouth. Soon his plate is empty. But the chef has other specialties too. For example, meat. A huge variety of meat is available. Pork, beef, chicken, lamb, grilled, baked, fried, steaks from rare to medium to well done. Sebastian finds it hard to decide what to go with first, but at some point he must decide since he can't consume all of it. Or can he? Even after downing the big plate of fish, Sebastian still seems to have confidence in himself. He returns to the table with a plate full of meat and bread. Franziska needs a little more time. She's pickier than Sebastian and chooses the fried fish with a little antipasti on the side. Sebastian heartily takes a bite of the coq au vin leg, but then realizes that the meat is much too dry, too stringy, so he turns his attention to the juicy steak on his plate. A bloody pink trail oozes out one side. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots something with a very similar color. "Snowdinho's here," he hisses at Franziska, who looks up inquisitively but fails to locate him immediately. "There, over there. He's got his 2 chicks along with him." "Oh yes, now I see them." Franziska scrutinizes them from a safe distance. "Aren't they dressed to kill?" Sebastian had not paid any attention to that. What catches his eye more is the ruddy, burned neck of Snowden's doppelganger. He's dressed maybe a tad too casual, wearing a t-shirt with a crew neck. Sebastian looks down at his plate, then up again at the trio searching for an empty table to sit at. "Snowdinho's burnt red scruff has the same color as my steak," he thinks instinctively. This thought suddenly ruins his appetite. His steak has lost its charm, and he offers it to Franziska, who politely turns him down. What to do but push the now cold, pink-colored piece of meat to one side of his plate with a gesture of disgust, far away from the still edible remains. Thankfully, a waitress soon comes and clears their plates. It's already pitch dark when Sebastian and Franziska make their way to take a cozy walk along the beach. Sebastian's stomach is full, so he greets the idea of walking for a while. It allows him to indulge in the illusion that such a stroll might wear off at least a few of the calories he has just ingested. They walk barefoot, hand in hand, over the sand damp from sea spray, feeling their feet sink into the soft underground with each step. Definitely an overrated feeling, Sebastian muses, but of course says nothing to Franziska. Suddenly he stops. "What was that?" He cocks his head and listens to the sounds of the night. "What? I didn't hear anything." The sea swooshes regularly, but Sebastian still seems to think he heard something else. "Wait, it was over there. There it is again, do you hear it?" Franziska pricks up her ears, trying to filter out the sound of the surf and concentrate on something she doesn't actually hear. A difficult task. "So did you hear it, huh?" "Ah, well, yes, a sort of hum or buzz," she finally concurs, hesitantly, without much trust in her own perception. "Yes, exactly, it's coming from somewhere over there." Sebastian points toward an imaginary spot in the dark, toward the hotel grounds. Franziska's gaze follows his finger. "Maybe it's an electrical box, or an air conditioner," she offers without much enthusiasm. She presses Sebastian's other hand to express her desire to move on. But Sebastian still wavers. "Yeah, you're probably right." They trudge on, hand in hand. When the buzz gets louder, it's already too late. All at once, they are standing in the middle of a menacing and whirring swarm of some sort of flying insects. They can see nothing, but they feel them all around. Sebastian remembers that not long ago, he had read something about the increasing population of Asian tiger mosquitoes on Majorca. They fly right up to you, land on any exposed skin areas of the arms and legs, and even try to enter your mouth and nose. "Come on, let's get out of here. Ouch, one got in my mouth," Sebastian calls out and spits on the ground. "That's disgusting." They run away, but even then, the aggressive insects follow them, giving up only once they can just make out the contour of the hotel. Well, that was worth it. Sebastian inspects the red and itching bites on his arms and legs. There are too many to count. Here, Franziska gives him a tube of cooling gel that will help a little. With a skeptical look on his face, Sebastian presses some of the gel out and rubs it on his arms and then his legs. The two of them lie on the bed for a while and eventually fall asleep after this exhausting day, the TV still running in the background. Sebastian thinks Snowdinho has finally figured it all out when he sees him the next time, fully dressed and stretched out on his usual deck chair, his back turned toward him. When he comes closer, though, he wonders what it is Snowdinho is wearing. Maybe a sort of bathrobe, Sebastian thinks from afar. It has a reddish-brown color, rather shaggy looking. Strange, Sebastian thinks, that's really strange, much too warm for wearing to the beach. So now he's exaggerating in the other direction. The two girls, however, don't seem to be bothered by this fact, although they are dressed appropriately in bathing suits. They both laugh heartily at something, maybe a joke, Snowdinho has told. Upon closer inspection, Sebastian sees that the bathrobe in fact looks like an animal skin. He can't believe his eyes and goes closer, saddling up so close to Snowdinho that the girls notice and look his way. This in turn causes Snowdinho to turn slowly and look in Sebastian's direction. Sebastian startles when he looks directly in a bright red monkey face with broad nostrils and a hairless forehead. Hanging out of his mouth are 3 fuzzy legs of a spider, wriggling in vain. The bald-headed Uakari greedily swallows the spider and contorts his face to a grimace, revealing his large and powerful fangs. Sebastian cries out, "Oh God, last night must have affected you more than I thought." Franziska looks into the blood-drained face of her friend, full of wonder and worry, then at his arms and legs covered with itchy red bites. "That looks pretty bad, you know. I think you should stay out of the sun today. It's probably not good for your insect bites." I know what I look like," Sebastian answers, irritated at her comments. "There's no need for you to rub it in." Franziska frowns behind her sunglasses. Sebastian can't see her reaction, and right now he really doesn't care much either. His thoughts are elsewhere. The two walk in silence, the short path from the hotel to the beach, taking up their usual place in the deck chairs, not speaking a word to each other. Snowdinho and his companions are already there, also in their usual spot. They are listening to music from a cell phone. Sebastian can't take his eyes off of Snowdinho, lying in the sun on his deck chair a ways from the umbrella. He's spread out, face down on the deck chair, his arms dangling to the side. The skin on his back has already begun to peel. "Do you have a problem with the music? Or why are you staring at him all the time?" Franziska asks. "I can go over and ask him to turn it down if you want, or turn it off completely." Sebastian shakes his head. "No, the music is fine, but just look at him. He looks like a lobster that's been cooking for 3 hours. Just awful." "Sst, not so loud. Who knows, maybe he can understand what you're saying," she admonishes him. Yeah, okay, Sebastian calms down. "Still, take a peek. Even you with your dark skin shouldn't be lying there exposed to the direct sun. Why doesn't he lie in the shadow under an umbrella or whatever? That's the reasonable thing to do, right? Maybe his skin gets tanned after it first gets red. You don't know his skin type." "What?" Sebastian has now returned to his previous state of arousal. "Really? Are you joking? Look at his skin. There's nothing tanned about that. That is a first-class sunburn, and no sunscreen in sight." "How do you know that? Maybe he put some on in his hotel room." Never. Otherwise his skin would be glistening." Franziska shakes her head at him. An indulgent smile crosses her face. But there's more. "I really don't understand why you're being so, let's just say concerned. This guy seems to somehow fascinate you. First your dream last night, then this. Why do you even care?" "That is so typical of you. Just because it doesn't affect me directly doesn't mean I don't care." "Are you saying that I don't think about other people?" Now there's a touch of aggravation in her voice. "No, just that. Listen, let's just stop here. This conversation is going nowhere. And anyway, I wanted to try out the stand-up paddling. There's probably not a big crowd there at this time of the day." Franziska takes her purse from the beach bag, pulls a t-shirt over, and leaves Sebastian with an air kiss behind. Before she goes, she glances at Snowdinho and shakes her head just slightly. Sebastian is lost in his own dark thoughts. He continues to stare at the Englishman, who seems to be having a good time, joking with his two girlfriends and digging into a huge piece of lush red watermelon purchased from the local street dealer with his continual call of melones, bananas, cocos. This guy is going to get a melanoma right before our eyes, Sebastian thinks. I can't bear to even look at it anymore. A short time later, the three of them suddenly get up and go, giving Sebastian some semblance of peace. Maybe Snowdinho will finally recognize that he can't go on living like this. At the evening buffet, Franziska is in a good mood, almost a little euphoric. Sebastian seems to have settled down, and Snowdinho has been nowhere to be seen during the rest of the day, not even at the buffet. That's good. Sebastian piles up a wild combination of pasta, pizza, paella, bread, meat, and canapes on his plate. Franziska prefers the meat offerings tonight. On her plate lie 3 delicately cut slices of roast beef with a fantastic and delicious-looking pink rosy coloring, and they taste as good as they look, maybe even better. Franziska wants Sebastian to participate in her pleasure, impaling a piece of roast beef on her fork and pointing it directly at his mouth. Sebastian is dreamily looking around the dining room. Stop that! That's just disgusting! Sebastian blurts out upon seeing the piece of meat dangling right in front of him. His voice is so loud that the hotel guests near them turn toward him and stare at the couple. He pushes the fork away with a grand gesture, thereby tipping over his glass of beer, which falls to the floor and shatters. A waiter immediately comes over to their table and asks in a remarkably accent-free tone whether everything is okay, referring to Sebastian's sudden fit of coughing. He proceeds to clean up the mess. Franziska is embarrassed at the fuss Sebastian is making, and she is angry at Sebastian as well as worried since she can't understand his behavior. Sebastian is red in the face, coughing and wheezing and apparently not realizing what is going on. Franziska, despite the long-winded protests of Sebastian, who himself is not feeling well but wants to continue the meal, decides she's had enough. Deep within himself, he understands her decision and now quietly follows her from the dining room, slightly more lucent now, without saying a word. When they arrive in their room, he throws himself down onto the bed. "Honey," she says, "I'll get you a pantoprazole. That'll do your stomach good." Taking care of him takes the edge off her anger about the scene he'd made in the dining room. Sebastian is now on his best behavior and allows himself to be mothered like a docile child. "Can I watch a little TV?" he asks ingenuously. "Of course, if you're feeling better," she answers softly and strokes his cheek. "Yes, I'm fine now. There's a horror movie on later I'd like to watch." Franziska starts to say some things but then refrains. She's tired, exhausted from the day, and doesn't want to squabble with Sebastian tonight. "Okay, then go for it. I'm going to go to bed. Good night." "Good night." The next day at the beach, all is as before. Snowdinho is lying on his chair, flanked by the 2 young women. He still presents his fire-red back to the sun. All of a sudden, however, he's sitting next to Sebastian, a bottle of sunblocker in his hand. Close up, Snowdinho's back looks even worse. Shimmering white blisters pulsate on his skin, watering and festering. The dead skin is peeling off in shreds, leaving strange patterns and forms. Raw red flesh peeks out. Even looking at it is painful. Sebastian begins to do the seemingly impossible, to apply and rub in the sun lotion on this strange appearance that is one big wound. He begins slowly, careful not to apply too much pressure to the cracked skin. This is not an easy task. It takes time, endless patience, and is a torture to Snowdinho and Sebastian alike. Finally, he makes it to the shoulders, which are in particularly bad shape, worse in fact than the rest, which can't be but is. Sebastian's hands shake, tense from the exertion, attempting to apply the sun oil without actually touching the skin, a sort of imaginary massage. Yet, slowly, now more quickly, the skin on Snowdinho's right shoulder begins to pulsate and waft. Then it breaks open and spews foul-smelling pus and gives birth to something else. A sticky, gooey head of hair emerges from the ever-growing wound, blood-encased, repulsive, disgusting. Slowly this freakish being turns to Sebastian, reveals an ape-like grimace, redder than the skin of its owner, and tears open its mouth to reveal enormous fangs. But there's more. It wants to go to Sebastian. Franziska looks haggard this morning. Sebastian, too. They both had a rough night behind them, albeit for different reasons. Now, in the rising heat, they are strolling to the empty beach, bathed in a glistening light. They look out over the ocean. They couldn't even think of eating breakfast this morning. "You cried out last night. It woke me up, and then I couldn't sleep the whole night long," Franziska says. There's clearly more than a little blame in her voice. Then she asks, "Maybe you have the sunburned back, not Snowdinho." Her words sound more like a taunt than worry. Sebastian mutters something under his breath. "If it were me, I wouldn't have watched that horror movie," she continues. "You could have told me so if you thought it was such a bad idea," Sebastian returns, now peeved at her. Franziska looks over to Snowdinho from a distance. She really doesn't want to see him anymore. "Let's just take the chairs over there, not so close to everything." Even though she doesn't really feel like it, she continues. "We can keep a closer eye on our things from here when we go out on a paddle boat. We've been wanting to do that the whole time." Sebastian's face reveals his lack of enthusiasm. "Sorry, not today. We've been lying around now on the beach for nearly 2 days. Why don't we do something different for a change? Why don't you at least try out the stand-up paddling? Or we could go jogging together. Or we could rent a car and drive around the island." "It's too hot for that, not today." While they are discussing the different alternatives, another couple lies down on their chosen beach chairs. "Oh, that is just grand. How typical of you. God, I really hate these discussions that lead to nowhere," Franziska grouches. Now the only other adjacent chairs for them are situated in the row directly above Snowdinho. He's lying peacefully in the sun and appears to be sleeping. His companions are swimming in the ocean. Tense and grumpy, Franziska lies down next to Sebastian and unpacks her bag. She sees it coming, that she will not be able to stand Sebastian continually making a fool of himself by fixating on this man. Sebastian, too, is tense. He sits on his chair and stares at Snowdinho. When Snowdinho rouses, looks around and sits up, Sebastian not only continues to stare, he comes up with an idea. "How about I put sunscreen on my skin? Be a model for him, as it were, so he knows what the right thing to do is," he thinks. Sebastian pulls the tube of sunscreen from the bag, takes off his t-shirt, and ostentatiously begins to rub on the sunscreen. Snowdinho happens to glance at Sebastian and his flamboyant behavior. He shows little interest and much indifference to Sebastian's extroverted performance, but continues to follow his antics for a while before slowly getting up and pulling his chair away, only to flop down again to expose his body to the sun even more. Sebastian notices what has happened with a feeling of alarm, but continues lathering on the sunscreen until his body shines and the tube releases the final drops of lotion with a loud squelch. Only now has Franziska taken notice of his escapades. She gives her friend's glossy skin a skeptical look and frowns at his artificial performance. On the inside, she is boiling, but can still just contain herself. And then, it's over. Sebastian stands up, the tube of lotion in his hand, his feet digging into the soft sand, and takes a couple of wobbly steps towards Snowdinho. Franziska jumps up, grabs Sebastian by his gibbery arm and hisses to him, in such an angry staccato, to stop that even Snowdinho, despite his sluggish beach behavior, takes a curious glance at the two. Boiling with rage, Franziska packs up her things and heads off to the hotel. Sebastian looks after her, peeved and moody. Why, he asks himself, why don't Franziska and Snowdinho understand him? Franziska has gotten over it. After staying in the hotel room the rest of the day, brooding and racking her brain for an explanation of why it had all happened and how things would now proceed, shedding a few tears in the process, she comes to the conclusion that she needs to talk to Sebastian once again. She decides to try to accompany him to the evening buffet one more time. But they are both self-conscious, each in their own way. They are at a loss for words. Sebastian can't stop thinking about Snowdinho and his awful skin. Someone would have to do something about it. Like lightning bolts through dense clouds, Franziska's words from this afternoon resonate in his head. What in the world is wrong with you? This is not how I expected our vacation to go. There's something seriously wrong with you. I'm leaving if this behavior continues. Etc. Sebastian picks at his food. I've got to go to the restroom, he says, a little shakily. Sure, go, I'm going to continue my meal. Sebastian stands up without a further word and leaves the dining room. Franziska watches him go and wonders why he takes the long route along the buffet. A half hour passes. Franziska is now miffed since Sebastian has not yet returned. She decides to leave, even if that means robbing him of his chance to eat something. She's had enough. Hurt and angry, she walks over to the elevator. On the way, her eye wanders to the atrium-like courtyard of the hotel and to the hallways. Something catches her eye, something familiar in an unfamiliar place. It takes her a second to realize what is going on. Then she clearly recognizes Sebastian standing in front of someone else's door on the first floor. Oh, geez, she thinks. What the hell is going on now? She strikes off in his direction. There she sees Sebastian, apparently trying to talk to someone, gesticulating wildly with his hands to make himself understood. Sebastian fails to see Franziska when she arrives, in contrast to Snowdinho, standing there speechless, uncomprehending, and clearly upset with this uninvited guest. Franziska rudely grabs Sebastian by the arm, mumbles something under her breath, but clearly signaling an apology to Snowdinho, and pulls her boyfriend away. Tomorrow morning she will fly back home. He needs new skin, fresh, white, unused, uncontaminated skin. I can help him, but he won't let me. Why not? That old skin has to go. It's burnt, hopelessly destroyed. But that skin doesn't want to be removed. That's why he won't let me have my way. Now, though, while he's sleeping, he won't defend himself. He wants it, too. In the depth of his heart, he wants it. Why would he otherwise have left the balcony door slightly ajar? He's waiting on me, for sure. A balcony on the first floor. Hey, even a child could tackle that task. Just wait. It's going to happen soon. He'll be thankful for my efforts. And everything with Franzi will turn out just fine. She'll understand. She will. And she'll say she's sorry. So be careful. Just don't make any mistakes now. Not in the home stretch. I must avoid cutting off my own fingers. Let's go. It's cold and wet when Sebastian climbs onto the airplane to fly back home from Palma de Mallorca. The pattering rainfall has turned everything gray and bleak as Sebastian's thoughts at the moment. Tidy, to be sure, but bleak, boring, slow. Watch out, there's a curb, don't trip, one of the two men accompanying him says in a friendly tone. That was nice of him. The drugs have apparently affected not just his thoughts, but also his bodily functions. Since getting them, he's felt woozy and dizzy. Also, sometimes, without warning, his knees buckle under him. Sometimes, from one second to the next, he begins to sweat profusely, which would be embarrassing if he were the Sebastian he used to be. Not to mention the salivation. Once seated, Sebastian would like to get up again. He doesn't know why, maybe just restless legs. But he can't. Just let us know beforehand if you want to get up. That's not how it works. Otherwise, we could just skip the handcuffs. The stern words of the officer of the State Bureau of Investigation are supposed to sound friendly. The man smiles dryly and adds in consolation, "You'll get used to it. Most people need a little time at first. Once you're in the clinic, they come off anyway. Only when you're taken somewhere outside are the cuffs needed." The plane takes off. A bright-colored beam of light streaks through the gray mass and into Sebastian's brain. Will she ever finally understand that what I did was the only right thing to do?